It started with a moment so small, almost no one noticed it at first. A quick glance, a smile that lingered just a little longer than usual, and then the internet did what it always does. It connected the dots. Jonathan Johnson, the guy everyone thought would stay single just a little longer, suddenly wasn't looking so single anymore. And the reason? A certain familiar face from Big Brother who, let's just say, knows exactly how to keep people watching. At first, it didn't feel real. Just another rumor, another what if that fans love to run with late at night. But then the clues started stacking up. The same locations in the background of their posts, the same events, the same people around them. And slowly, that what if started turning into something a lot more interesting. Because when two reality TV personalities cross paths, it's never just random. Jonathan has always had that calm, confident energy, the kind that doesn't need to be loud to be noticed. He's the guy who walks into a room and somehow ends up being the center of attention without even trying. And for a long time, fans have been watching his journey, waiting for the moment when someone would finally catch his attention for real. Apparently, that moment has arrived. And her? She's not exactly new to the spotlight. Smart, bold, and just unpredictable enough to keep things exciting, she built her reputation on being someone who doesn't follow the usual script. If anything, she rewrites it. So when these two worlds collided, people couldn't help but wonder, was this just a coincidence or the beginning of something real? What makes it even better is how natural everything seems. There's no forced drama, no over-the-top announcements, just subtle moments that feel genuine. A shared laugh here, a playful comment there. The kind of chemistry you don't have to explain, it just shows up. And fans, they picked up on it instantly. Social media quickly turned into a full-blown investigation. Comments started pouring in. Wait, are they together? Did anyone else notice this? Okay, but this actually makes sense. And honestly, it really does. Because if you think about it, they balance each other out in the best way. Jonathan brings that steady, grounded vibe, while she adds just the right amount of spark and unpredictability. It's like watching two completely different energies somehow sync perfectly. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Instead of rushing to confirm anything, they've kept things just mysterious enough to keep everyone guessing. And somehow that makes it even more exciting. Every new post, every new appearance, it all feels like a tiny piece of a bigger story that's slowly unfolding. There was one moment in particular that really got people talking. A simple interaction, nothing too dramatic, but the way they looked at each other, that wasn't something you could fake. It wasn't staged, it wasn't for attention. It was the kind of moment that just happens when two people are genuinely enjoying each other's presence. And suddenly, the idea of them being a couple didn't feel surprising anymore. It felt inevitable. Of course, not everyone saw it coming. Some fans were completely shocked. Jonathan had always seemed focused, almost like he was waiting for the right person instead of just jumping into anything. And now, out of nowhere, here he is, smiling more, joking more, and clearly different, in a good way. And maybe that's what makes this story so fun to watch. It's not just about two people possibly dating. It's about seeing a side of them that we haven't really seen before. Because when someone finds the right connection, it shows. It's in the way they talk, the way they carry themselves. Even the smallest things start to feel lighter, happier. And that's exactly the vibe fans are picking up on right now. There's also something undeniably entertaining about the way this whole thing is unfolding. No big announcements, no dramatic reveals, just a slow, steady build that keeps everyone hooked. It's almost like they know exactly what they're doing, giving just enough to keep people interested, but never enough to completely solve the mystery. And honestly, it's working. People are more invested than ever. Every new update turns into a conversation, every appearance becomes a moment to analyze, and every little interaction feels like a clue in a story that's still being written. But beyond all the speculation and excitement, there's something genuinely sweet about it too. Because at the center of all this noise, all this attention, are two people who seem to be enjoying each other's company in a way that feels real, not rushed, not forced, just natural. And in a world where everything is usually loud and over the top, that kind of simplicity stands out. It makes you root for them. It makes you want to see where this goes. And maybe that's why this story has captured so much attention so quickly. It's not just about who they are individually, it's about who they might become together. A new kind of duo, a new kind of dynamic, something fresh, something fun, something people didn't know they needed until now. Of course, the big question still lingers. What happens next? Will they finally confirm what everyone is already thinking, or will they keep things exactly the way they are, letting the mystery build a little longer? Either way, one thing is clear. It's not just another passing rumor. There's something here, something that's growing, evolving, and pulling more and more people in every single day. And whether you're here for the romance, the curiosity, or just the pure entertainment of it all, you can't deny it's been a ride worth watching. Because sometimes the best stories aren't the ones that are announced with a big headline. Sometimes they're the ones that quietly unfold, one moment at a time. And right now, this one, it's just
when it felt
started.
like things couldn't get any more intriguing, they did. Because the more people paid attention, the more impossible it became to ignore what was happening right in front of everyone. It wasn't just the shared spaces anymore. It was the energy. There's a certain kind of comfort you can't fake, no matter how good you are in front of a camera. The kind where conversations flow easily, where silence isn't awkward, where even the smallest jokes somehow land perfectly. That's what people started noticing next. Jonathon wasn't just smiling more. He looked relaxed in a way fans hadn't seen before, like he wasn't trying to be anything other than himself. And somehow, that made every moment feel more genuine. And her? She seemed just as at ease, still playful, still full of personality, but softer around him, like she'd found someone who could match her energy without trying to outshine it. It created this balance that was surprisingly addictive to watch. Of course, the internet didn't stay quiet about it. Comments started shifting from curiosity to full-on support. What began as, "Wait, is this real?" slowly turned into, "Okay, we actually love this." Fan edits popped up everywhere. Clips, screenshots, little compilations of their interactions, each one trying to capture that spark people couldn't stop talking about. And then came the teasing. Not the kind that feels forced or scripted, but the kind that only happens when two people are comfortable enough to play around with each other. A quick comment here, a witty reply there, the kind of back and forth that makes you smile without even realizing it. It added a whole new layer to the story, because now it wasn't just about whether they were together, it was about how much fun they were clearly having. There was one moment, simple, almost easy to miss, but it said everything. They were surrounded by people, noise, distractions everywhere, but for a few seconds it was like none of that existed. Just the two of them locked into a conversation that looked a little too natural, a little too comfortable to be anything but real. And that's when even the skeptics started to come around. Because you can question posts, you can question timing, but moments like that, those are harder to explain away. And suddenly, the idea of them being just friends started to feel unlikely. What makes it even better is how unpredictable it all is. Neither of them fits into a neat little box. They both have their own personalities, their own ways of doing things, and instead of clashing, those differences seem to make everything more interesting. It's like watching two different stories merge into one, and somehow the result is better than anyone expected. There's also this quiet confidence in the way they've handled everything. No rush to define it, no need to prove anything, just letting things unfold naturally at their own pace. And in a world where everything usually moves way too fast, that kind of patience feels refreshing. It gives people time to enjoy the journey instead of just skipping to the end. But make no mistake, the anticipation is building. Every new appearance together feels a little more intentional, every interaction a little more telling, like they're slowly getting more comfortable letting the world see what's happening. Not all at once, just enough. And honestly, that might be the smartest move they could make. Because right now, people aren't just watching, they're invested. They're rooting for the late-night conversations no one sees. They're imagining the inside jokes that don't make it online. They're building a story around these two that feels bigger than just a few shared moments. And the funny part? Jonathon, the guy who once seemed completely focused on everything except romance, is now at the center of one of the most talked about connections. Life has a way of doing that. It surprises you when you least expect it. It brings people together in ways that don't always make sense at first, but somehow feel right anyway. And maybe that's exactly what's happening here. Not something planned, not something forced, just something that clicked. Of course, there are still questions, plenty of them. What does this really mean for both of them? Where is this actually going? And the biggest one of all, are they going to keep this slow burn mystery going or finally give everyone the confirmation they're waiting for? But maybe that's not even the point, because sometimes the magic is in not knowing, in watching something grow without needing to label it right away, in enjoying the little moments, the subtle hints, the quiet chemistry that speaks louder than any official announcement ever could. And if you think about it, that's what's made this story so captivating from the start. It's not loud, it's not chaotic, it's not built on drama. It's built on connection, on timing, on two people who, for whatever reason, seem to have found each other at exactly the right moment. And whether this turns into something long-term or remains one of those unforgettable what-could-be stories, one thing is certain: people are watching closely, because something about this feels different. Something about this feels real. And in the middle of all the noise, all the speculation, all the excitement, that's the part that keeps everyone coming back for more.
Just when it seemed like the story had settled into a comfortable rhythm, something shifted again. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in the kind of quiet way that makes people lean in a little closer. Because now, it wasn't just about moments anymore. It was about consistency. They kept showing up in each other's world, not accidentally, not occasionally, but in a way that felt intentional. And that's when fans really started to feel it. This wasn't just a passing phase. This was becoming part of their everyday lives. Jonathon, who once carried that independent, I've got everything handled energy, now seemed to be letting someone in. Not just into his schedule or his social circle, but into his space, his time, his attention. And that's a big deal, because people don't do that unless it means something. And her presence? It didn't feel temporary. It didn't feel like a cameo in his story. It felt like she was slowly becoming part of the main cast. Naturally, effortlessly, like she belonged there. There was also this subtle shift in how they interacted with the world around them. Before, everything felt separate. His life, her life, two different paths running side by side. But now, those lines were starting to blur. Friends overlapping, environments mixing, conversations that once happened in different circles now happening in the same space. And when that starts to happen, it usually means something deeper is forming. But what really caught people off guard was how comfortable they seemed being seen together. Not hiding, not over-explaining, just existing side by side like it wasn't something they needed to justify. And that kind of confidence, it speaks volumes. Because when something's real, you don't feel the need to convince anyone. You just let it be. Of course, the reactions kept growing. Some fans became full-on supporters, analyzing every interaction like it was part of a love story unfolding in real time. Others were still cautious, waiting for something more concrete before fully buying into it. But even the skeptics couldn't deny one thing anymore. Whatever this is, it's not random. There's intention behind it. There's feeling behind it. And maybe even something neither of them expected when this all started. Because sometimes, the best connections are the ones you don't plan for. The ones that catch you off guard. The ones that slowly turn from this is fun into this actually matters. And if you watch closely, you can almost see that transition happening here. In the way their conversations seem a little more personal. In the way their attention lingers a little longer. In the way everything feels just a bit more meaningful. There's also a growing sense that they're building something quietly behind the scenes, not for the cameras, not for the headlines, but for themselves. And that's what makes this even more interesting, Because while the world is busy watching and speculating, they seem focused on something much simpler, enjoying the connection for what it is without rushing to define it. That kind of approach doesn't just create excitement, it creates authenticity, and people can feel that. It's why the interest hasn't faded. It's why every new moment still feels fresh. It's why this story keeps pulling people back in. Because deep down, everyone loves watching something real take shape. Not perfect, not scripted, just real. And maybe that's why Jonathon feels different now. Not just happier, but lighter. Like he's not carrying everything on his own anymore. Like he's found someone who doesn't complicate things, but actually makes them easier. And in return, she seems to have found someone who matches her in a way that doesn't limit her, but complements her. That's rare. And when people see something rare, they pay attention. Still, the biggest question hasn't gone anywhere. Where does this go next? Because right now, they're standing right at that point where everything could either stay beautifully undefined or turn into something official, something undeniable. And if that happens, this won't just be a story people watched, it'll be one they remember. But even if they choose to keep things exactly as they are, slow, quiet, and a little mysterious, that might be what makes it even more special. Because not everything needs a big announcement to be meaningful. Not everything needs a label to be real. Sometimes the strongest connections are the ones that grow naturally, without pressure, without expectations, just two people figuring things out as they go. And maybe that's exactly what we're seeing here. A story that didn't start with a grand plan, a connection that wasn't forced into existence, just two lives crossing paths at the right time and choosing to stay. And whether this becomes something long-term, something unforgettable, or something that simply changes them both in ways no one can see yet, one thing is certain. This story hasn't reached its peak. If anything, it feels like it's just beginning.